Chapter 902. The World Group's mercenaries' faces sunk. All of them stared fiercely at Nangong Lin. They were feeling vexed. Earlier in King Ling's tomb, why didn't they throw Nangong Lin into those worms? Nangong Lin didn't have any self-awareness at all. She felt extremely aggrieved when her own brother covered her mouth as she struggled to pull Nangong Firen's hand away as she screamed at the top of her lungs. I didn't say anything wrong. The Azura group has already been harmed by them till we're the only ones left alive. I don't want to die, I just want to live on. Nangong Lin's face was filled with tears. After entering the tomb of the Ling King, everything was beyond her imagination. Seeing her brother's companions dying one by one in front of her, to the young lady who had been protected extremely well, it was totally unbearable. These people gathered at this place because of the god relic on her. As long as she hands over the god relic, everything will be fine. Brother, so many people have died, don't tell me you still want to take away my sister's life for her, for this vixen whom you've just met once? Nangong Lin's gaze was mournful as she spat out sharp words one by one. She was Nangong Firen's most beloved sister. How could she not tell that the way Nangong Firen looked at Yiqing Luo was exactly the same as the way she looked at Yifeng Ru? Nangong Firen seemed as though the deepest secret in his heart had been discovered as his expression turned green and red. Facing Xianxia and Yifeng Ru's questioning gaze, his face flushed red as he gritted his teeth and berated angrily, "What rubbish are you talking about? Nangong Lin, looks like I've been too lax in my teachings, allowing you to develop this habit of stirring up trouble. When we return to the Nangong family, I will discipline you properly." However, the various powerhouses didn't have much interest in their conversation. What they were most interested in was the location of the god relic which Nangong Lin mentioned. Basically, they could confirm that the god relic was in Yiqing Luo's hands. But what they should consider now was, if they killed Yiqing Luo and snatched the god relic, would the Overlord vent his anger on them? Or perhaps if they were to make a move, would the Overlord fly into a rage and slaughter all of them for the sake of his beauty? While everyone was still looking around trying to see if there was anyone who could make the first move or if there was an opportunity to make a move, the two teams of the World Group had already left successfully under the cover of Nine-Tail Fox's large furry tail. The surrounding forces instinctively wanted to stop them. At the very least, they had to make sure that they were not carrying any god artifacts on them. However, they were stopped by one of the nine-tailed fox's tails. Those huge white tails were as big as thick trees. It crashed down with a crackling sound, and the ground immediately cracked open, sending rubble flying everywhere. All the forces retreated step by step. Not only did they succumb to the majesty of the holy beast, but they also did not dare to attack the nine-tailed fox. The nine-tailed fox was the symbol of Dizun. Attacking the nine-tailed fox was equivalent to slapping the Overlord in the face. How could they have the guts to do so? Yiqing Luo, who was protected by Little Nine, looked at this scene with a gloomy and cold gaze, naturally understood why they didn't dare to make a move. This was the majesty of a leader. Once she stood at the peak of the world and was revered by tens of thousands of people, no one would dare to touch her. Even the people around her didn't dare to move. In her heart, a decision started to form slowly. Now that things had come to such a state, there was no need for her to conceal her true ability, no need to act as a pig to eat the tiger. Of course, she wouldn't be so silly to display all her ability. She wanted to display. Chapter 903. It was not only to protect himself but also to protect the people around him. She looked indifferently in Nangong Firen's direction and said, "You may leave." Nangong Firen opened her mouth to explain that she was not like what Nangong Lin had said. Very quickly he was interrupted by Yiqing Luo. "I don't care about your matters." As soon as she finished speaking, she indifferently moved her gaze away as if she couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on them. Nangong Firen felt a stabbing pain in her heart. She felt as if a hand was gripping her throat, making it difficult for her to breathe. She treated them as strangers. Nangong Firen closed her eyes and said in a deep voice, "Let's go." Yiqing Luo ignored them. She had already given the Azura group the chance to leave. Whether they could leave or not depended on their own abilities. It was because of her that the Killing God group entered the bottom of the Ling King's tomb. Of course, Yifeng Ru wanted the Profound Phoenix Ring as well. But Yiqing Luo gave them a chance to leave on account of the 30 over mercenaries who had died. Yiqing Luo's vision swept past the surroundings at those restless powerhouses. There were already a large number of people who wanted to take the chance to secretly chase after Qiao Jin and Baiming Liancheng's two teams. Yiqing Luo turned her head and stared deeply at the man dressed in a purple robe who was standing among the mercenaries. Zhou Xian retracted his imposing manner and blended into the world mercenary group. Hearing the surrounding people discussing about his relationship with Yiqing Luo, he didn't reveal any bit of imposing manner. He was quiet as if he was an outsider. This was also the reason why he who had such a powerful aura had not been discovered by the other forces. His obsidian-like deep eyes stared at her the entire time. Their eyes met. Zhou Xian's brows overflowed with a pampering smile. His rosy red lips curled up slightly, his eyes glistening with a smile. Then he slowly nodded. Unless it was a desperate situation, he would not interfere. This was the agreement between them. It was also the freedom he had given Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's matter, he would let Yiqing Luo handle it. If he couldn't handle it, then he would do it. For a lady like Yiqing Luo, she didn't depend on a man to live, nor did she hide behind a man to live. She had her own world. It had its own light. What he wanted to do was to protect Yiqing Luo properly in the process of her blossoming, accompanying her and personally witnessing her becoming stronger step by step. It was enough. After getting Zhou Xian's response, Yiqing Luo turned around and leaped into the air. The black figure streaked across the sky like a black afterimage, instantly attracting the attention of the big forces. Don't you want to see the divine relic? Yiqing Luo's enchanting voice faintly revealed a bit of chill. Her pink lips curled up into a devilish smile. She spread her arms and floated in midair, the glowing flame fan in her palms stirring up a myriad of winds and waves. I'll show you the might of a divine artifact. The red devouring flame fan opened and closed at the tip of his fingers. As he opened and closed it, it was like balls of excited flames were moving about in his palm. From Yiqing Luo's feet, an extremely valiant energy was emitted. The red profound light was accompanied by a fierce gust of wind. Its momentum was turbulent, as if it would fall into an endless abyss in the next second. The various forces were boiling with excitement. A divine artifact. This is the power of a divine artifact. The divine artifact is indeed on her. Snatch it. Snatch the divine artifact and you will be able to snatch the world. All of you go. Kill Yiqing Luo. Snatch the divine artifact. Kill Yiqing Luo and snatch the divine artifact. Not knowing which force took the lead and kept shouting, wanting to snatch the divine artifact back from Yiqing Luo. Chapter 904. Yiqing Luo half squinted her eyes, as her gaze shot towards the direction where the first voice came from. It was the direction of the Yuqi family. Patriarch Yuqi's heart went numb from this gaze and a chill ran down his spine. As compared to the other powerhouses, Yuqi family's patriarch had a deeper understanding of Yiqing Luo. If he acted rashly to obtain the divine relic, he would only suffer in the hands of Yiqing Luo. Until now, Yuqi family's patriarch wasn't able to guess clearly, nor was he able to investigate how many powerhouses were behind Yiqing Luo supporting her. Furthermore, the Overlord's only sacred beast nine-tailed fox was still here, apparently to protect Yiqing Luo's momentum. It was inappropriate to offend the Overlord and the entire Imperial Palace for the sake of a divine artifact. He might as well take advantage of the chaos to plunder Yiqing Luo. Not only would he be able to seize the divine weapon, but he would also be able to avenge his son and the Yuqi family's reputation. By then, even if the Overlord really wanted to put the blame on them, who could be 100% sure who had brought Yiqing Luo away from the chaotic battle of thousands of people? Towards the Yuqi family's dark thoughts, Yiqing Luo wasn't the least bit interested. She indifferently withdrew her gaze. The red devouring flame fan swept across the azure water ring on her fingertip. Bang! A loud explosion sounded. The red glow on Yiqing Luo's body shot out boundless energy. The devouring flame fan in his hand was also flipping rapidly at his fingertips, giving off crisp sounds of collision. Heavens! This is a divine artifact. It's the power of a divine artifact. Some cultivators saw Yiqing Luo's entire body enveloped in red glow, as though she was a nine heavens mystical lady, as they immediately cried out in astonishment. Yiqing Luo's powerful might was unleashed without any reservations. The red glow was bewitching. The red glow that flowed out of his fingertips was like a dancing flame. It set off her beautiful little face, making it even more captivating. The brilliance of all things in the world could not compare to the brilliance of her. Many low-rank profound practitioners clutched their chests as their heart meridians were shattered by this powerful pressure and spat out blood. However, not a single person dared to speak. All of them stared at the young lady in midair with reverence. More accurately, he was staring at the divine artifact on her body. Was this the power of a divine artifact? A 15-year-old little girl was able to directly advance to the earth profound realm by relying on a divine artifact, and could be called an expert. He could even release such a powerful pressure. If they were the ones who obtained this divine artifact, even if Dizun came, they would not be afraid. Although reason denied this idea. After all, Dizun's power was beyond their imagination. But once this thought was planted in his mind, as his desire and greed grew, this seed would germinate. That gaze that didn't dare to blaspheme gradually turned into greed. Seeing the changes in their expressions and gazes, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a cold smile. With a move of his palm, the gourd flame fan flipped and created wave after wave of stormy winds. The violent wind whistled mixed with the bewitching red light. When the shockwave spread out for a radius of 50 kilometers, everywhere it passed crushed stones flew, and the ground was instantly razed to the ground. In the air, a terrifying and powerful explosive aura surged wave after wave of air waves. It was filled with an austere coldness. This caused everyone to feel fear and astonishment in their hearts. What? Isn't this the divine artifact that you've been dreaming of? Why are you running? Yiqing Luo's eyes rose slightly as her tone was filled with thick ridicule. When the various powerhouses heard this ridicule, they regained their senses from the shock. The way they looked at Yiqing Luo was as though they were looking at meat on the chopping board, as their eyes were filled with greed and wolf-like glint. Chapter 905. Immediately, thousands of cultivators, hundreds of powerhouses men, all charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo glanced at the surroundings. After confirming that Qiao Jin and Baiming Lianqing had already brought his team and left according to plan, he slowly let out a breath of impure air. As long as they left with her and Zhou Xian around, there was no need to fear those forces. Yuqi family's patriarch's order was only for Yiqing Luo. After making use of other forces to open up a path of blood, they directly abducted Yiqing Luo. Thus he had been loitering around the periphery. As for the other powerhouses, not only did they have to target Yiqing Luo as their target, they also had to guard against the other powerhouses, whether they would take the opportunity to make a move on themselves. For a time the battle situation was chaotic, but it was also sensational. Outside the tomb of the Ling King, all kinds of profound energy fluctuated, strong winds surged, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered and overlapped. Tong Ziqing and the others led the remaining Zhao Bo and the other mercenaries to pick up their weapons and began to fight. From the looks of it, it seemed like just a spit from one person from each faction could drown them to death. But if they were to really fight, not to mention the mercenaries of the world group didn't have the ability to fight against 100. He only said that their group of forces had no intention of cooperating at all. No one was willing to believe anyone else. Whereas for Yiqing Luo's side, she had the help of the nine-tailed fox. There was no tragic consequence of being drowned as he had imagined. On the contrary, Yiqing Luo's aura was getting more and more arrogant. She had just advanced to the 4th level of the Earth Profound Realm, and the profound qi in her body was constantly surging, as if it wanted to let her vent something. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly and a cold glint of air burst out from her fists. This was a good opportunity for him to test out his new power and see how strong it was. Let's see just how heaven-defying the power of the azure water ring is. She gripped her feather fan tightly as she dangerously narrowed her charming eyes. Her delicate body instantly shifted in midair, bringing along a violent gust of wind as it transformed into a gigantic whirlpool of energy wave that rushed towards all the profound practitioners in the surroundings. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that her every move was filled with boundless heaven and earth's spiritual qi. The profound jade heart that was being nurtured in his heart felt different from the profound jade heart that he had previously used. It was filled with a sense of satisfaction. His strength was sufficient, and his profound heart jade's compatibility was sufficient. It made the adventurer's blood in Yiqing Luo's body boil continuously. He wanted to fight to the end, to the death. Boom! Powerful energy swept out in all directions. Yiqing Luo started with the Shangguan family, not giving Shangguan Fangyi any face at all. The horrifying gale immediately scattered the Shangguan family's small team. Some profound practitioners didn't even have the time to shout out before they were blown away by the strong wind, and their entire bodies were flipped over. At this moment, the group of profounders from the Shangguan clan would never be able to forget this scene. The woman who looked like the goddess of the 9 heavens had a bloodthirsty and cruel sneer on her face. The red feather fan in his hand was like a dancing flame at his fingertips. Wherever it went, no one survived. In but an instant, nearly 200 profound practitioners of the Shangguan clan had become corpses that lay on the ground. Among the corpses, the black-clothed girl was smiling faintly, but her charming eyes were flowing with a cold light that seemed to come from hell. The other forces wanted to rush up together to subdue Yiqing Luo. They all stopped in their tracks. Too terrifying. Merely Yiqing Luo, a 15-year-old young lady, and a young lady who had just broken through to the Earth Profound stage, actually relied on her own strength. In less than half an incense's time, she had massacred nearly 200 profound practitioners from the Shangguan clan. Chapter 906. The only one who survived was Shangguan Fangyi. The cultivators from the Shangguan family's forces had died to protect Shangguan Fangyi. Only Shangguan Fangyi was left. His handsome face was stained with blood. There was his own blood as well as the blood of the guards who had died for him. He gripped his long sword tightly as he stared at Yiqing Luo in shock. It was unimaginable 2 months ago the devil-class trash who was only at the yellow profound 9th level, had now easily massacred the people he had brought. Was this really the power of a god relic? Could a god relic really make a waste so powerful? Third young master Shangguan. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she smiled charmingly. Long time no see, I didn't expect to meet you here. Shangguan Fangyi gripped his long sword tightly as his face turned pale as he stared at her vigilantly. What do you want? Kill a chicken. Yiqing Luo smiled even more happily as her eyes curved, narrow and devilish. Then his tone deepened, cold and strange as if he was the Azura that demanded their lives. Word by word he said, to warn the monkeys. Kill a chicken to warn the monkeys? Was she trying to frighten the other forces out? Shangguan Fangyi's heart was filled with fear as he immediately turned his head to look at the surroundings. There were many clans in the alliance with the Shangguan family. But at this moment none of the forces stood out. Shangguan Fangyi was isolated and helpless. At this juncture the other forces could tell that Yiqing Luo had a personal feud with the Shangguan family. They couldn't wait to protect themselves. How could they possibly get involved in this mess? Their target was the god relic on Yiqing Luo. They didn't want to lose the chance to get the god relic because of the Shangguan family. Yiqing Luo. Even if you kill me you will not be able to leave this place. Shangguan Fangyi trembled as he watched Yiqing Luo walking towards him. He was so afraid that he almost fell to the ground. I won't kill you. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up coldly as a crafty cold arc flashed past her eyes. Shangguan Fangyi's face darkened. He didn't understand what she meant. Yiqing Luo leaned close to him and lowered her voice, cold and cruel. Shangguan family must pay the price for everything that Shangguan Liuli has done now. The game has just begun, you still have a lot of time to enjoy the fun of the game. That cold voice drifted in his ears like a ghost. Shangguan Fangyi was stunned. Just as Yiqing Luo straightened her waist and distanced herself from him, her legs turned weak and she lost her balance as she fell onto the ground. The gravel on the ground stabbed into her buttocks. The sharp pain brought Shangguan Fangyi back to his senses. The words that Yiqing Luo said earlier surfaced in his mind. Although she didn't understand what Shangguan Liuli had done to make Yiqing Luo so angry. But he could be sure. What Yiqing Luo said earlier wasn't a joke. Everything now was just the beginning. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a slender figure slowly walking forward with her back facing him. His gaze finally stopped on her fingers. Before Shangguan Liuli left, she pointed in the direction of her finger. Was she telling him the location of the god relic? Shangguan Fangyi's eyes flashed. If he could snatch the god relic and obtain its power. The person who became everyone's focal point now was him. It was absolutely not Yiqing Luo's turn to be arrogant here. Thinking of this, Shangguan Fangyi restrained the cold look in his eyes and suddenly pounced towards Yiqing Luo's back. This pounce was filled with Shangguan Fangyi's unafraid of death. His entire person brought along a burst of raging energy as he swiftly entangled Yiqing Luo. When he got close to Yiqing Luo, his hand swiftly stretched out towards her wrist. Chapter 907. This ring is a divine artifact? Shangguan Fangyi's eyes shone brightly, and without thinking, he directly stretched out his hand in an attempt to forcefully remove Yiqing Luo's ring. Just as Shangguan Fangyi's hand was about to touch Yiqing Luo's ring, suddenly, a huge wave of qi surged up and fiercely crashed into Shangguan Fangyi's chest. Pfft! He spat out a mouthful of blood. The divine artifact is that ring? Brothers, let's go. Snatch the divine artifact. All the surrounding forces, because of Shangguan Fangyi's actions, naturally noticed the azure aqua ring which was emitting a red glow on Yiqing Luo's fingertip. Once he confirmed what a divine artifact was, those spectators who were watching the show immediately flocked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as she gave a cold laugh. Her footsteps immediately expanded as her figure swiftly retreated backwards. Immediately after, he bypassed a group of forces that were surrounding him. He didn't forget to stir his vast profound energy with the feather fan in his hand to deal a fatal blow to those profound practitioners. Her speed was extremely fast, so fast that not a single one of the thousands of profound practitioners could catch a glimpse of her. On the other side, Nangong Furen took advantage of the chaos and left with Nangong Lin and the others. Part of the reason why Yiqing Luo took the initiative to display the power of the god relic was to create an opportunity for them to leave. Nangong Furen blushed at the thought of this. As the leader of the third-ranked mercenary group, the Gold Mercenary Group. But in the end he ended up running away in defeat. She even had to let a woman from the Bronze Mercenary Group, create an opportunity for her to escape. However, their departure still attracted the attention of other small forces. All of them came out from Ling Ling King's tomb. Although Yiqing Luo had already displayed the majesty of the god relic, proving that the god relic was with her. However, there were many good things in a place like the tomb of the Ling King. Especially for a gold medal mercenary group like this to enter the tomb of the Ling King, they must have something good on them. Since these small forces could not participate in the fight for the divine weapon, they naturally turned their attention to Nangong Furen and the others. Nangong Furen pulled Nangong Lin behind him and fought back with Yi Fengru and the others. The four of them had already expended a lot of energy in the tomb of the Ling King. At this moment, it was slightly strenuous for the four of them to deal with these 100 or 200 low-level profounders. Furthermore, even though Nangong Lin was talented, she had never experienced a real fight before. He panicked at this moment. While the other four were unable to split their attention to protect her, Nangong Lin was being chased by a profound practitioner from a small force. Nangong Lin turned around and ran away in fear. It just so happened that he saw the young lady who was ceaselessly executing her movement technique and flicking the feather fan in her hand, causing wave after wave of profound energy to surge. Nangong Lin seemed as though she had seen a life-saving straw as she directly pounced forward. Yiqing Luo, save me. The profound qi in Yiqing Luo's body became more and more proficient in releasing it. She quickly circulated the profound qi in her body and fused it with the devouring flame fan. The qi waves stirred up by his fingertips became increasingly unpredictable. That imposing aura was like a rainbow, the surging and majestic profound energy spread out wave after wave. Yiqing Luo's half-squinted eyes flashed a faint cold glint. The cruel smile on his face became more and more obvious. She wanted to release more power. She wanted to raise the entire area outside the Ling King's tomb to the ground. The surging profound qi in her chest pounded against her chest, as though it was about to burst out. Suddenly a person bumped into her. The profound qi which was accumulated and ready to be released instantly dissipated after this knock. Chapter 908. Nangong Lin's body was flung away and was stabbed in the shoulder by the cultivator from the small-sized powerhouse. She cried out miserably as she fell heavily onto the ground. Yiqing Luo, why are you so cold-blooded? At least we. Nangong Lin cried out in pain as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo's direction. Just this one look made the anger in Nangong Lin's heart be replaced by fear and terror. What kind of pair of eyes was that? It was as cold as a venomous snake without any warmth. Just one look and Nangong Lin felt as though she was in an ice house. Nangong Furen rushed over and killed that cultivator who wanted to charge up with one slash. He held Nangong Lin up with one hand as he looked at the wound on her shoulder with a complicated gaze. Nangong Lin saw that she had someone to rely on as she buried her head into Nangong Firen's arms. But she didn't dare to whimper and complain about Yiqing Luo's evil deeds like before. They had already settled those small-sized powerhouses, and Yifeng Ru, Xianxia and the rest had also rushed over. When they saw the wound on Nangong Lin's shoulder, they frowned. You could have saved her. Nangong Firen gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo, and for some reason he had a strange feeling. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled slightly as she snorted with a faint smile. I have no obligation to save her. Repaying evil with good was obviously not her style. Nangong Lin's life or death had nothing to do with her. Moreover, if it wasn't for Nangong Lin's appearance, she would have released her profound qi and leveled this steep cliff to the ground. Nangong Firen had no words to refute. Indeed, Yiqing Luo had no obligation to save Nangong Lin. Moreover, Nangong Lin had gone against Yiqing Luo time and time again. From Yiqing Luo's standpoint, she could indeed choose not to save her. But Nangong Firen felt that it shouldn't be like this. Even if today was the first time he got to know Yiqing Luo. Nangong Firen felt that Yiqing Luo wasn't a narrow-minded person and would absolutely not abandon someone's life just because of a few words of slander and insults. Yiqing Luo respected every life. This was what Nangong Firen felt during the few hours they spent together in the tomb of King Ling. As though sensing Nangong Firen's puzzlement, Yiqing Luo smiled as her long and narrow eyes outlined a cold arc. I've never thought that I'm a kind person. My conscience is only limited to the companions that I've acknowledged. Pausing for a moment, she shot a cold glare at Nangong Lin. Don't think that I owe your killing god team anything. Today, in the tomb of the Ling King, the person who caused your killing god team to be annihilated was not me. It was Nangong Lin. The worms were attracted by Nangong Lin. It was Nangong Lin who had awakened the 5 corpses. If it wasn't for Nangong Lin's willfulness, the Azura group wouldn't have lost so many people. Yiqing Luo dropped this sentence and shifted her gaze away without any warmth, not wanting to be entangled with them any further. Nangong Firen held the shivering Nangong Lin in her arms and frowned. After a long while she closed her eyes and said, "Let's go." When she passed by the man who was standing afar, gazing at Yiqing Luo with a gentle gaze, Nangong Firen suddenly stopped in her tracks. Pay attention, she doesn't seem right. Zhou Xian's peach blossom eyes glistened as he lifted his eyelids and casually shot a glance at him. Following that, a deep voice leisurely entered her ears. This lord's woman, this lord knows it better than you. Nangong Firen was stunned as he lowered his eyelids and muttered, I've said too much. After saying that, he carried Nangong Lin and left the Ling King's tomb with the other 3 without looking back. Chapter 909. Zhou Xian retracted his vision as his gaze continued to congeal on Yiqing Luo. His dense long eyelashes trembled slightly as his deep eyes flickered with complicated emotions. His handsome eyebrows gradually furrowed. Zhou Xian had sensed Yiqing Luo's abnormality from the moment she released the Azure Dew Ring's power. But this abnormality seemed to be extremely normal. Yiqing Luo wasn't a lady who could stay quietly. Was it because after a long period of time her ability had increased and the sealed battle spirit in her body was slowly awakening? The adventurer's blood was starting to boil? All these possibilities were possible. From the current looks of it, Yiqing Luo's performance was still considered normal. Only after the battle ended would he be able to check on her body properly before he could be assured. Boom! An earth-shattering loud sound was heard. Outside the Ling King's tomb, an intense gale was stirred. The horizon was getting nearer and nearer as circles of pitch-black shadows attacked. Gradually, the sound of footsteps that shook the hearts of people could be clearly heard. Dong dong dong. As the footsteps became more and more ear-piercing, the ground started to shake. When the various powerhouses heard this sound, all of their expressions changed drastically. Not good. The beast tide is here. Could they be attracted by the god relic's energy? From this sound there are at least 100 over magical beasts. The beast tide has erupted. Beast tide. 2 words which made one tremble with fear. Numerous cultivators would rather kill a few more people than to meet with a beast tide. Especially such a ferocious beast tide. Those powerhouses who were fighting for the god relic also stopped their attacks. All of them gazed far into the distance. But a moment later they saw a huge black mass of magical beasts charging over. Huge batches of magical beasts charged forward. The huge magical beasts ran on the ground, causing the entire ground to shake. It's really a beast tide. These magical beasts' target seems to be the god relic. One of the powerhouses saw that huge mass of magical beasts, and after they surged over, they surrounded the Ling King's tomb, which had been leveled to the ground. There were a few tiger beasts which were at least the size of 2 tigers, as they circled around the Ling King's tomb, sniffing around. Obviously, he'd come for the divine artifact in the tomb of the Ling King. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she expressionlessly gazed at this huge wave of magical beasts, but a sliver of excitement flashed past her eyes. It was the excitement of catching prey. Beast-tide? Mo Hanshang's brows creased as his delicate brows were suffused with an inexplicable melancholy. Vice Group Leader, don't you feel that? This batch of beast-tide is a little too strange? Yiqing Luo raised her brows and nodded indifferently. It's indeed very strange. No matter how high a magical beast's cultivation level was, it was impossible for its intelligence to reach the level where it could plan these things. Unless there was someone behind the magical beast. Someone was controlling the magical beasts and ordering them around. That person was also after the divine artifact? Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as her sharp gaze swept past those magical beasts. The person behind this must be nearby. There was a large number of magical beasts, about 300 of them, and they were all mid-level and above. There were also a dozen low-level magical beasts mixed in. According to their strength, they were entirely capable of being considered as a small team of 1,000 profounders. These magical beasts raised their heads high and roared incessantly. Yiqing Luo's vision looked towards Little Nine, who was sitting arrogantly by the side. Little Nine understood her meaning as its black whirlpool eyes glanced at the surrounding magical beasts with majestic aura. A sharp cry was emitted from its sharp mouth. Chapter 9-10. However, these 300 over magical beasts, after hearing the sacred beast's warning howl, didn't have any intention to leave. They looked around trying to find the source of the sound. On seeing the snow-white fur and the huge 9-tailed fox, all of them lowered their heads as they gave out a submissive low moan. Submissive was submissive. But unfortunately, these magical beasts stood on the same spot, not moving at all as they surrounded the entire leveled King Ling's tomb. There were several middle-leveled magical beasts whose plump bodies were trembling under Little Nine's intimidation, but still refused to leave. Yiqing Luo was even more certain of her guess at this moment. If it wasn't for the fact that there was someone controlling these magical beasts would have dispersed long ago. Yiqing Luo made Little Nine stop howling as she squinted her eyes and leapt onto Little Nine's back. Can you sense that there's something controlling the magical beasts? Little Nine sensed everything around it as it shook its head. Yiqing Luo propped her chin as she went into deep thoughts. If there really was someone controlling the magical beasts, he would definitely need a medium to control the magical beast. As a sacred beast, if there really was that medium, Little Nine should be able to sense it. Could it be? Because Little Nine was a sacred beast, and the person who controlled the magical beasts didn't have the ability to control the sacred beasts? Looking at the 300 over magical beasts, there were 10 over low-leveled mirage beasts mixed in. Yiqing Luo's vision shifted onto Shiju, who was still lying on the ground, as its eyes were wide open as it gazed at her without blinking. She pursed her lips as she waved her hand, keeping Shiju back into the pet space. Shiju was too weak now, so she couldn't let Shiju continue to move. Roar, roar, roar. Shiju and Yiqing Luo had signed a contract, so naturally it could sense its master's emotions. After entering the pet space, Shiju gave out a low moan. It meant that it sensed that there were people around. Indeed so. Yiqing Luo didn't hesitate any further as she leapt upwards. Her petite body was like a bolt of lightning as she charged towards the direction of the beast tide. After various powerhouses saw Yiqing Luo's actions, they were unable to ascertain that this beast tide was gathered by Yiqing Luo to escape. Therefore they also rushed forward like a swarm of bees. The magical beasts saw humans launching an attack, and their bestial instincts were instantly triggered, as they raised their heads and howled a few times, as they swiftly and violently tore those humans apart. These magical beasts were all coarse-skinned magical beasts. An ordinary person's weapon would not be able to harm a demonic beast at all. The various forces were blocked by the magical beasts and naturally assumed that it was the 9-tailed fox who had summoned the surrounding magical beasts to help Yiqing Luo out of the predicament. Didn't the 9-tailed fox converse with those magical beasts just now? It seemed that the Overlord was very protective of this woman. The various powers brandished their weapons, killing the demonic beasts before them. The battle that had just stopped was on the verge of breaking out again. Yiqing Luo had no time to bother about how those powerhouses cultivators were guessing. She wanted to dig out the person controlling these magical beasts. If he didn't remember wrongly, this wasn't the first time he had met this person. Yiqing Luo was as swift as lightning as she followed the response given by Shiju, and in a few steps, she had already passed through the layers and layers of magical beasts. Sure enough, a slender figure was faintly discernible within the group of magical beasts. The black cloak covered his entire body. However, it was not difficult to see that while the figure was slender, it was also petite and was clearly a woman. At this moment, that woman's fingers were holding an emerald jade flute, as she placed it by her red lips and kept on blowing. Her fingertips bounced above the jade flute as agile as an elegant dance. But Yiqing Luo didn't hear any sound coming from that jade flute. Chapter 9:11. It really was her. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes turned cold as her figure scuttled and landed in front of the woman. This person was none other than a stranger. It was the high-leveled mirage beast Child Een that they had met in the magical beast forest last month. When the world group was fighting, that batch of magical beasts had appeared. At that moment, Yiqing Luo vaguely saw a slender female figure. It was the person in front of him. This person controlled the magical beast to follow her time and time again, creating trouble for her. What was his motive? Judging from his attire, he seemed to be a member of the dark forces. But every time she made a move, it seemed that the timing was not the same as that of the dark forces. Who are you? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Her voice was clear and melodious, but cold as ice. The woman did not seem to notice her existence and continued to play the flute. Yiqing Luo's brows creased even tighter as she shot a glance at the magical beast, which was still in battle and directly made her move. The glower flame fan stirred up a whirlwind as it flew towards the woman's face. The woman flipped her jade flute and quickly retreated a few steps. The jade flute was placed by his mouth again. A clear and tyrannical voice rang out, and a violent gust of wind rose from the horizon. A giant bird beast grabbed the retreating woman with its sharp claws and flew away. You want to use the bird beast to escape from here? Since she had already appeared, Yiqing Luo had no intention to give this woman a chance to leave. Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers moved and a strong profound qi burst out of her body. A powerful red mystic light burst out of the feather fan. The mystic light turned into a seam and directly severed the 2 wings of the giant beast. Yiqing Luo stomped her feet and leapt upwards. The height at which she jumped was exactly the height at which the bird beast fell. The bird beast's wings were cut off, and it let out a mournful cry. The claws that were grabbing onto the woman immediately loosened. The woman was a little flustered, and just as she was about to play the jade flute again, her arm was grabbed by a slender little hand. She looked back and met with a pair of clear and charming eyes. Those eyes were flowing with a seductive light. The black cloak slid off his head. 4 pairs of eyes met, and Yiqing Luo's eyes, which were filled with a sneer, was immediately filled with a sliver of astonishment. It was her. The person controlling the magical beast was actually her? Yiqing Ling. How could it be Yiqing Ling? Ever since Yiqing Ling's use of dark forces items was exposed in public, her profound jade heart was destroyed and her meridians were severed. She was chased out of the Yi residence. It had been so long. Yiqing Luo had almost forgotten about the existence of Yiqing Ling. She didn't expect Yiqing Ling to use such a method to appear in front of her again. He was clearly a cripple without the ability to move. Now he had actually become a beast tamer who could control magical beasts. And it was precisely this trace of astonishment that gave Yiqing Ling the opportunity to counterattack. Yiqing Ling broke free from Yiqing Luo's restraint and quickly put the jade flute to her mouth. A bird beast swiftly swooped down and caught her firmly. Why are you here? Yiqing Luo knitted her brows as she stared at her coldly. Yiqing Ling's 5 fingers clasped the jade flute as a trace of ridicule surfaced on her elegant face. Of course it's for revenge. Her beautiful eyes gradually became sinister and filled with hatred. I want to take revenge on you and the Yi clan. I will take revenge on all those who have hurt me. Yiqing Luo's slender brows knitted even tighter. You and the dark forces have made a deal. It wasn't a question but an affirmative sentence. Although Yiqing Ling didn't seem to notice the entanglement of the profound Yin Qi. But to be able to turn a cripple who had difficulty in moving into a beast tamer, other than the dark force's forbidden technique, there was no other way. But what kind of existence was Yi Qingling in the dark forces? Chapter 9:12. Yi Qingling remained silent. Silence was considered as acquiescence. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes dangerously. Was it Yi Qingqian who sent you to the dark forces? Yi Qingqian was able to freely manipulate the profound Yin Qi, which showed that her status in the dark forces should be equivalent to that of a guardian or an elder. Yi Qingling joining the dark forces was probably because of Yi Qingqian. She didn't look like she was eroded by the profound Yin Qi. But Yi Qingluo was certain. The profound Yin Qi in Yi Qingling's body was more than enough. Otherwise, Yi Qingling's meridians would not be able to recover. This beast-taming ability that came out of nowhere should be the masterpiece of the dark forces. As long as I can take revenge, so what if I have to make a deal with the devil? Yi Qingling giggled, her eyes filled with hatred. Her fingers clasped the jade flute and placed it by her lips as she smiled softly. Yi Qingluo, no matter how powerful you are, facing thousands of magical beasts and those cultivators who are eyeing you covetously, you can't escape from this place. A silent airflow overflowed from Yi Qingling's fingertips. That airflow lingered around Yi Qingling's body, circling round after round. The bird beast that Yi Qingling was riding on quickly flew backward. Soon after, birds and beasts that blotted out the sky and covered the earth came whistling from all directions. These birds. Yi Qingluo's eyes suddenly surged with a strong murderous intent. These were the birds that slaughtered the marketplace. About 100 of them, densely packed, rushed towards her. The one who slaughtered the people in the marketplace is also you. Yi Qingluo's voice also revealed a strong anger. That day she followed the description of the tea-house owner and saw the black-cloaked man. It was not Yi Qingling at all. As Yi Qingluo could tell. Yi Qingling only had a beast-taming ability. Yi Qingling did not have profound qi or profound yin qi, it was just an ordinary human body. That day the black-cloaked man had escaped from her and Zhou Xian's pursuit. Yi Qingling definitely could not do it. Yi Qingling laughed softly, her fingers dancing on the jade flute, manipulating the bird beast to tear Yi Qingluo mercilessly. It's me, but seventh younger sister isn't as sharp as I thought. She smiled until her eyes squinted. But I used to protect her to attract your attention and you fell for it easily. What? When did seventh sister become so kind? You even want to take revenge for those people in the market? The birds and beasts howled, covering the sky and covering the earth as they surrounded Yi Qingluo, enveloping her. In an instant, Yi Qingluo's figure was already covered by the birds and beasts. Yi Qingling's eyes were filled with raging hatred. The speed at which she blew the jade flute also increased, her fingertips constantly adjusting the notes. While playing the jade flute, her cold voice clearly came over. Seventh younger sister, you destroyed my profound heart jade and broke my meridians. I'll tear your body and bones to pieces and scatter your soul. The clear cries of birds and beasts pierced through the sky. One by one, they continued to surge towards Yi Qingluo's direction. Qingluo, Vice Commander. When the World Mercenary Group members below saw this, they cried out in fright. However, they were obstructed by other magical beasts and profound practitioners from other powers, so they were unable to provide assistance at all. Tong Ziqing's gaze subconsciously looked towards the man who stood alone in the midst of the chaotic battle, like a banished immortal. His hands were still behind his back, his obsidian-like deep eyes stared unblinkingly at the horizon. The expression on his face was calm without any ripples. Tong Ziqing immediately felt relieved and transmitted her voice through the mercenary group badge. Believe in Vice Commander, nothing will happen to her. What we need to do is to get rid of the person in front of us, to reduce Vice Commander's burden. Yes. The 20 or so mercenaries replied in a sonorous voice. Yes, they must believe in Vice Commander. Chapter 9:13. If something happened to Yi Qingluo, Zhou Xian would be more worried than anyone else. Since Zhou Xian wasn't worried, it meant that Yi Qingluo was still fine. A beast tamer couldn't do anything to Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingling's eyes were icy cold as she stared complacently at the figure that was swallowed by the birds. The flames of hatred and anger were still burning wantonly in her eyes. She blew the jade flute, controlling the bird beast to burn Yi Qingluo, tearing her apart and finally swallowing Yi Qingluo's soul. Her mood was agitated and restless. Her chest felt stuffy and blood spilled out from the corner of her mouth. He was also at a loss. She blew the jade flute directly as her eyes were filled with a crazy and sinister hatred. She wanted to see Yiqing Luo die with her own eyes. She wanted to let Yiqing Luo's soul never be reincarnated. Bang! A loud explosion that shook the heavens resounded, and a wave of profound energy that was like sand being washed away by a great wave instantly surged out. The birds' shrill cries were piercing to the ears. In a flash, countless bird corpses were blown away. Fresh blood splashed everywhere along with the wind. The sticky liquid with a fishy smell splashed on Yiqing Ling's face. Her beautiful eyes abruptly widened as she looked in disbelief at the originally densely packed hundred-over bird beasts which had engulfed Yiqing Luo, as they started to disperse. The blood of the birds was like a rain of blood, watering the ground. After the densely packed birds dispersed, a slender figure could be seen, faintly discernible. That simple black outfit, although it was already damaged but when worn on Yiqing Luo, it had a unique charm. The flame-like cherry blossom embroidery on her arm was like a flame swaying with the wind. The devastatingly beautiful face seemed to be plated with a layer of frost. The curved pink lips gently hooked into a cold arc. The long and narrow eyes were sparkling as if it carried thousands of beauties. Her entire body was surrounded by a powerful and shocking profound energy. The red profound light was like a blossoming flower, incomparably beautiful. Smashed into pieces? Yiqing Luo snorted lightly. Her tone was cold as she looked at Yiqing Ling faintly. Soul scattered. How could you? No, impossible. No one could escape the siege of birds and beasts. Hundreds of bird beasts swallowed Yiqing Luo in midair. How could Yiqing Luo be fine and instead her bird beast army was annihilated in one move? How strong was the current Yiqing Luo? Yiqing Ling's eyes were filled with fear as she subconsciously manipulated the bird beast beneath her to quickly leave Yiqing Luo's direction. Third sister, didn't you want to shatter my body and scatter my soul? Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in disdain. Suddenly the feather fan opened up and a strong qi swept out, directly blocking Yiqing Ling's path. Following that, Yiqing Luo's figure flashed and got close to Yiqing Ling like a demon from hell. The smile on the corner of her mouth revealed a bone-chilling coldness. Relying on the dark forces, it's nothing more than this, third sister. The last form of address, Yiqing Luo emphasized each and every word. Yiqing Ling was so shocked that her delicate body trembled and stiffened. She wanted to manipulate the bird beast beneath her, but a cold thing had already stuck to her neck. Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Ling dared not to move again, gritted her teeth and cried out Yiqing Luo's name. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers pulled out the jade flute from her hand. Yiqing Ling's expression turned into panic and uneasiness in an instant. The jade flute was the only thing she could rely on. Losing the jade flute was equivalent to losing the ability to protect herself. If Yiqing Luo wanted to kill her, it would be a piece of cake. The more Yiqing Ling thought, the more uneasy her heart became. At this time, the bird beast that lost control immediately became irritable. Chapter 9:14. Ah! Yiqing Ling screamed in terror. Her body felt light as Yiqing Luo grabbed her firmly and both of them landed on the ground. Yiqing Luo. What are you trying to do? Yiqing Ling panted uneasily as her pupils constricted and stared at Yiqing Luo in fear. She had fallen into Yiqing Luo's hands and she had no leeway to retaliate. Sooner or later she would be killed by Yiqing Luo. Why not take action earlier and directly end her pain? As if she had seen through Yiqing Ling's thoughts, Yiqing Luo's lips curled up and directly interrupted her delusion. Third sister, you have repeatedly opposed me, obstructed me and even wanted to take my life. Do you think I will let you die so easily? She smiled lightly and tilted her head, her long and narrow eyes revealed a bit of charm. Moreover, what third sister should not have done is to massacre the marketplace. The people there were so innocent. It was just because they passed by the marketplace and had a conflict with the Iron Blood warriors. Just because of their conspiracy, a futile attempt to use the profound Yin Qi to engulf her. In order to massacre. There was a high possibility that the dark forces would step into the Nirvana realm. In fact, those people didn't know anything at all. Thinking of the tea house owner who was on the verge of collapse and the stall owner who painted them, Yiqing Luo's heart couldn't help but twitch a few times. A strong anger inexplicably welled up in her heart. Yiqing Luo's cold eyes faintly floated a touch of sullen. She wanted to avenge those people in the marketplace. For those innocent people, to kill this Yiqing Ling who controlled the birds and beasts and massacred the marketplace. Not only Yiqing Ling. And those people behind Yiqing Ling. Yiqing Ling's piercingly cold eyes suddenly turned scarlet. The feather fan in her hand was suffused with a terrifying profound qi as it directly struck towards Yiqing Ling's face. Yiqing Ling was completely stunned by that pair of eyes filled with hatred. Until that profound qi struck her face, she didn't even have the time to struggle and escape. Just as the profound qi struck Yiqing Ling's face. Suddenly, a more powerful profound qi directly crossed in front of her, forming a transparent protective shield. The majestic profound qi suddenly dissipated. Yiqing Ling opened her eyes in panic only to see a purple figure encircling Yiqing Luo's slender waist. That man had a face of peerless elegance. His fluttering purple robe made his handsome face look even more handsome. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes only took a casual glance, but his heart felt as if it had been hooked. However, Yiqing Ling's infatuation did not last long. Because that handsome man was hugging Yiqing Luo tightly. That pair of soul-stirring eyes could only accommodate Yiqing Luo alone. Little Luo, Zhou Xian's brows creased tightly as his 5 fingers clasped tightly onto the glower flame fan that she was about to raise and forcefully snatched that glower flame fan from her hands. From Yiqing Luo's side, a strong billowing airwave was violently moving about. The intense killing intent in her eyes refused to dissipate. Xian, don't stop me. Yiqing Luo's voice was cold as she struggled to break free from Zhou Xian's embrace. She is the one who controlled the birds and beasts and massacred the marketplace. Zhou Xian's eyes sunk as the strength in his arms increased. No matter what, you can't kill her now. Yiqing Luo knew that if the man refused to let go no matter how she struggled, it would be futile. She simply raised her head and looked at Zhou Xian's eyes coldly. Are you protecting her? Chapter 9:15. Since it has nothing to do with you, then get out of my way. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly. She didn't like to see Zhou Xian talking to her with a straight face for another woman. Zhou Xian's big palm clasped the back of her head, bent down and kissed her lips. Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo flew into a rage out of humiliation. Her mouth was blocked as she roared his name. She struggled with all her might, but how could she be the man's opponent? But after a while she had already collapsed into Zhou Xian's arms. Zhou Xian's eyes didn't have the slightest bit of desire when he was intimate with her. Seeing her misty eyes, he then slowly released her lips. The delicate young lady nestled in his arms. Her pink lips were red and swollen from his love, glowing as if tempting him to bend down to pluck them. That pair of enchanting eyes were long and narrow, yet bewitching. This was the look he loved so much. But at this moment he didn't have the urge to lust. Because Yiqing Luo was not normal now. Xian. The young lady's low voice revealed a bit of weakness and languidness. Her soft and charming eyes gazed deeply at his face. Zhou Xian held her slender waist. His eyes dimmed slightly as he shifted her gaze and asked tentatively, Now, do you still want to kill Yiqing Ling? His voice was deep and husky. When it was by her ear, it could easily stir a certain part of her heart. Yiqing Luo's delicate body trembled in his arms. Her gaze followed Zhou Xian's direction and looked towards Yiqing Ling's direction. Instantly, the expression on her face stiffened. The memory of the short circuit just now surged into her mind. Her dazed eyes blinked and blinked again. After a long time she regained her senses. Her eyes were filled with confusion. It just now wanted to kill her? That feeling of hatred, that feeling that filled her heart, seemed to still exist, waiting to be unleashed. But at this moment Yiqing Luo could completely feel her own heart. She knew that Yiqing Ling was the one who massacred the market. She indeed wanted to kill her. But she absolutely didn't have that kind of strong impulse to dismember Yiqing Ling. What was going on? Just now her heart seemed to be out of control, frantic and restless. If you still want to kill her, I'll do it. Zhou Xian's voice was low as he gazed into her eyes, not wanting to miss the slightest change in her emotions. The pair of charming eyes were startled at first, then she frowned and said, I can kill her myself. Yiqing Ling was aware of the change in the situation, and when they looked at her at the same time, she rolled to the side of Yiqing Luo's leg. Over there, was the jade flute which Yiqing Luo had dropped onto the ground when she was kissed till she had no energy left. Yiqing Luo was hugged in Zhou Xian's arms and her mind was still engulfed by that restless memory earlier, so she had yet to regain her senses. Yiqing Ling caught the jade flute and immediately blew it. A bird beast descended from the sky and took her away. Yiqing Luo's brows creased into a bundle, but she didn't forcefully chase after him. Yiqing Luo felt a lingering fear when she recalled the inexplicable anger and murderous intent which she had earlier. It wasn't only because he was in a mess when he faced Yiqing Ling and wanted to kill her to vent his anger. Even earlier, when she massacred the Shangguan family's team, she also had this feeling. When she saw the fresh blood splattering and the corpses all over the ground, she actually felt strangely excited. Little Luo, from now on, don't release too strong profound qi for the time being. Zhou Xian's eyes flashed as he seemed to have a guess, but he wasn't too sure. Chapter 9:16. It was the World Group's mercenaries who were dealing with the sneak attacks from various forces in an orderly manner, and leading them to the side of the frenzied magical beasts, making use of the magical beasts' energy to settle those powerhouses' cultivators. Yiqing Ling originally wanted to control the magical beasts in an attempt to snatch the god relic from Yiqing Luo, but she had not expected it to become the World Mercenary Group's assistance. If Yiqing Ling knew about this, her intestines would definitely turn green with regret. Yiqing Luo nodded her head as she concealed the flames around her. Luckily Zhou Xian was watching over her. Otherwise she would really sink into the massacre, unable to extricate herself. Yiqing Luo really didn't wish to have that kind of frenzied massacre and furious thoughts again. As though in the next second this feeling would corrode her entire body. Old Man Tsong. Yiqing Luo called out Old Man Tsong's name in her mind. Old Man Tsong immediately replied her, "No need to ask, I've already checked and there's nothing suspicious in your limbs and bones, and there's no presence of profound yin qi." With Old Man Tsong's words, the suspicions in her heart were all dispelled. There was nothing strange and she wasn't corroded by the profound yin qi. Then, her temper, why was it so baffling? After we leave King Ling's tomb, find a chance to make a trip to the Azure Dew bracelet. I'll help you take a look. Old Man Tsong couldn't explain the reason. She frowned and was about to continue asking when she heard Zhou Xian's deep voice ringing beside her ear. "What's the matter?" Her conversation with Old Man Tsong seemed as though she was in a daze in the eyes of outsiders. Yiqing Luo regained her senses as her lips twitched as she shook her head. "I'm wondering if something has entered my body. I'm afraid that the earlier situation will happen again." If Zhou Xian didn't stop her earlier, her current, that intense murderous intent and irritable mood, was it even more uncontrollable? "We'll talk about everything after we leave King Ling's tomb." Zhou Xian caressed her hair as he comforted her in a warm voice. "I'm here, it's all right." Yiqing Luo responded softly. Under the World Group's cooperation, the magical beasts were exterminated by 200 over beasts and cultivators' corpses. The number of people from various forces had also decreased from 3,000 over to 1,000 over. The entire flat ground was piled up with magical beasts' corpses and cultivators' corpses. The more than 1,000 people were already exhausted. When they saw Yiqing Luo and Zhou Xian walking together, their faces revealed a terrified and unresigned expression. The Overlord had been in the crowd from the beginning to the end. They didn't discover it because the Overlord had concealed all of his aura and formed a barrier so other than the World Group members, no one could see him. He was unwilling to give up the chance to obtain the divine artifact just because of the Overlord's appearance. Yiqing Luo's power made many cultivators want to get their hands on the god relic. All of them thought that if the divine relic was in their hands, it would definitely shine even more brilliantly than Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo looked at those powerhouses' cultivators, with different expressions in their eyes, as well as those magical beasts which were charging around without a care for friend or foe, killing each other as she calmly stood still. Even if she couldn't release too powerful a profound energy right now. Even so, she couldn't generate a strong murderous aura right now. But she could still make the various forces stay away from the World Mercenary Group. So what if he let the various forces know that the divine artifact was on him? Did the dark forces think that she was afraid of this news being spread out? She would make the various forces admit that she, Yiqing Luo, was the most suitable possessor of the divine artifact. "I'll take note." Yiqing Luo glanced sideways as her lips curled into a smile, looking at Zhou Xian who was beside her. Chapter 9:17. Zhou Xian would not stop Yiqing Luo's decision. He believed that Yiqing Luo would know what to do. The smile in Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually warmed up as she tried her best to stabilize her emotions. Then his eyes lit up like torches as they swept across the forces in front of him. You want a divine artifact? Do you have the right to do so? Yiqing Luo's voice was cold and her eyes were cold. The profound practitioners of the thousand forces were panting heavily. They were in a sorry state and extremely dirty. The long battle, the anger of not being able to obtain the divine artifact, and the smell of blood in this broken place for such a long time. These profounders had long since become impatient in their hearts. At this moment, hearing Yiqing Luo's provocation, some boorish fellows couldn't control themselves as they retorted unhappily, "What qualifications? You're just a little girl who hasn't even grown her hair yet. How dare you challenge us?" Exactly. Little girl, do you know what kind of people we are? Any one of them would have more experience than you. You want to talk about qualifications with us? To spout such arrogant words at such a young age, you're just relying on the fact that you have a divine artifact. What kind of skill is that? These words obtained the agreement of many profounders. But because of Zhou Xian's presence, they didn't dare to reply. In his heart he kept urging these boorish fellows who were not afraid of death to speak as fiercely as possible. The girl's charming eyes narrowed dangerously, and the corners of her mouth twitched with a faint smile. All right, then I won't use the power of the divine artifact. As soon as she finished speaking, the young girl took off the azure water ring from her finger. The gazes of the profound practitioners of the Thousand Citizens Force immediately stuck to her finger. But he saw Yiqing Luo's finger tremble and that azure dew ring disappeared from her hand. Where's the divine artifact? Damned girl. Where did you hide the divine artifact? Hand over the divine artifact. Otherwise, you can forget about leaving the Ling King's tomb today. The disappearance of the divine artifact caused countless profound practitioners to panic. Their goal was only the divine artifact. If he killed Yiqing Luo, he would not be able to get the divine relic. Instead, the imperial palace had set their sights on them. As long as they could get their hands on the divine artifacts, they would no longer be afraid of the overlord. Yiqing Luo touched the profound phoenix ring with her finger. Her eyes were filled with ridicule. It doesn't matter where the divine relic is. Now that I have taken off the divine relic, let's see what other excuses you sanctimonious people have. Then she raised her hand and raised her voice. Brothers, let those so-called experienced and powerful seniors witness our strength. Hearing the order, Tong Ziqing and the others quickly responded, yes. There were more than 20 people, but they gave off the aura of more than 100 people. Facing the profound practitioners of more than 1,000 forces in front of them, they showed no fear. Little 9. Yiqing Luo's eyes swept towards the direction of the nine-tailed fox. The nine-tailed fox immediately let out a bestial howl with its sharp mouth. The magical beast that had lost its master immediately submitted to the majesty of the holy beast, becoming Yiqing Luo and the others' assistants. The two sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. At first, the 1,000-odd people were still a little cautious, not daring to really attack. But looking at Zhou Xian's look of a bystander, absolutely not interfering in anything. Gradually there were some daring people who went forward to probe. Zhou Xian had no reaction. That daring person's probing became even more obvious. Zhou Xian still had no reaction. And in this process of probing, there were constantly cultivators who died in the hands of those young mercenaries, under the feet of those magical beasts and mirage beasts. The 1,000-odd cultivators started to get serious. Zhou Xian still had no reaction. Everyone put their hearts at ease and looked at Yiqing Luo with undisguised greed. Chapter 9:18. The azure dew ring's energy was sealed in the profound phoenix ring. Yiqing Luo tried her best to control the rhythm and strength of her profound qi release. But when the feather fan in her hands killed the incoming profound cultivators, fresh blood splattered. The scarlet and glaring blood stimulated her heart, and there was still that restless feeling of wanting to move. Yiqing Luo bore with it and didn't let that restless feeling control her body. In just a short while the blood around her had turned into a river. Those surrounding cultivators who wanted to snatch her god relic under the cooperation of the magical beasts and her brothers, fell one by one. Actually, these mercenaries in the world group had never killed anyone before. Some of them had never killed anyone before. They were once treated as trash. They understood the feeling of wanting to live on. Even under Long Yunzhan's leadership, they became stronger and no longer treated as trash as a disgrace. They still didn't know how to kill. When they killed the first person, their hearts were still filled with fear and uneasiness. But recalling what Yiqing Luo had once said, "In this world where the weak are prey to the strong, if you don't become other people's food, then other people will become your food. Towards those fellows who want your life, don't be soft-hearted or feel fear. Because nothing is more important than staying alive." Yes, they wanted to stay alive. They wanted to stay alive and follow behind Yiqing Luo, watching their group slowly walk towards the peak. They wanted to stay alive. They wanted to protect their brothers and companions to stay alive. Then, only by killing those people who tried to take their lives away. There was nothing cruel about it. Because this was the law of survival in this world. At this moment, the hearts of over 1,000 profound practitioners were filled with shock. These young men and young ladies who looked like 17 or 18 years old actually had such powerful abilities. They were obviously just mystic profound grade cultivators and their actual combat experience wasn't that rich. But unfortunately, these 20 over young men's footwork and body movements were so agile that no one could catch up to them. Even if they managed to catch up to them, they would be blocked by the sudden appearance of the magical beasts. They couldn't hurt these youngsters at all. The most sinister thing was, when they were dealing with the magical beasts, these youngsters silently appeared behind those low-leveled cultivators and mercilessly slashed those cultivators' necks. By the time their companions reacted, these youngsters had already moved to another direction. From the beginning to the end, Di Zun did not make a move. He didn't even sense the aura that was helping him in the dark. No, these youths did not need any help at all. Among all the martial arts in the world, only speed was unbeatable. This is a truth. They had only used a set of footwork and movement techniques, but they were so strange that no one could see through them. No one could see through the mysteries behind them and break them. Coupled with their tacit cooperation, the magical beasts risking their lives to take all the damage for them, and the holy beast, the nine-tailed fox, would swing its 9 tails to help them from time to time. That was enough. Annihilate them all. Especially that young girl who was like a bloodthirsty Azura. Everywhere she went, flesh and blood flew in all directions and profounders fell one by one. Her speed was several times faster than the other youths. His ruthlessness was also more direct and efficient than those youths, killing with a single slash. Don't ask why the disparity in strength was so great, why they couldn't even put up a fight. He could only say, if the strength of a team worked well together, it could really rival thousands of soldiers and horses. Chapter 9:19. 20 over people massacred an entire 3,000 people. If this was spread out, they would definitely become the laughing stock of Nirvana realm. How could they tolerate the reputation which they had worked so hard for their entire lifetime to be destroyed just like that? Over 1,000 powerhouses cultivators were only left with 400 over people. Until now, these cultivators were still unable to believe that everything in front of their eyes was real. They had really been massacred. Originally they were disorderly, each listening to their own commands. Now, according to their status in the world, they had chosen the Yuchi family to become the commander. With the various powerhouses working together, although they had reduced the number of deaths, but they still had no way to deal with these sinister and cunning youngsters. Yiqing Luo's feather fan in her hand struck out a sharp blade, directly killing 2 cultivators in front of her as she leapt upwards. Immediately a bird beast flew over under Little Nine's coercion and caught Yiqing Luo in its arms. Yiqing Luo half squatted on the bird beast's back, as her gaze swept past the battle situation below, as she heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that the training of the brothers during this period of time was effective. Their learning ability and acceptance ability had exceeded her imagination. Perhaps it was because they were once looked down upon low-leveled cultivators. Towards matters regarding learning, they were much more serious than ordinary people. Moreover, their unity and tacit understanding was much stronger than what she had imagined. Luckily, the brothers didn't have too many casualties, and all of them only suffered some superficial injuries. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept around as she saw Yuchi family's patriarch, who was standing among the crowd, trying his best to command everyone to fight. as though he had sensed her gaze, or perhaps Yuchi family's patriarch had always been paying attention to her direction. Coincidentally, he raised his eyes and met her gaze. 4 pairs of eyes met as Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a bloodthirsty cold arc. Her devastatingly beautiful face was stained with a few drops of blood stains. Coupled with this coquettish cruel smile, there was a different kind of charm. Yuchi family's patriarch's heart shook fiercely as he completely froze. In the crowded and chaotic battlefield, he was pushed slightly by someone and his whole body staggered and fell backwards. Luckily, the guards beside him reacted in time to support him. Otherwise, Yuchi family's patriarch's loss of composure would become a joke again. His heart contracted as his eyes widened in astonishment as cold sweat started to flow. After returning last month in less than 24 hours, Yuchi Peng died silently at home. Moreover, his death was miserable, as if all of his vitality had been sucked out, leaving behind only a withered corpse. This matter caused Patriarch Yuchi to be somewhat vigilant. Yuchi Peng's death was too strange. It was so strange that the Yuchi family head had already started to suspect that Yuchi Peng had really made a deal with the dark forces. Regarding the news of Yuchi Peng's death, he had been hiding it from the outside world. He more or less believed what Yiqing Luo said earlier. Because Duke Jing, who would often come to the Yuchi residence to hang around, ever since that day when he returned, he had never returned to the Yuchi residence. It was very likely that he had already been poisoned. But of course they couldn't eliminate the possibility that his son, or Duke Jing, whose life or death was unknown, might have been killed by Yiqing Luo and wanted to push the blame to the dark forces. This young lady named Yiqing Luo. It wasn't something he could resist at all. Just as the Yuchi patriarch was about to leave, a cold wind suddenly blew behind him. Immediately, 10 black-clothed men descended from the sky, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. The black attire of the assassin was wrapped tightly around his head, revealing only a pair of sinister and cold eyes. Chapter 920. Only. But Yiqing Luo could see the darting black airflow from these killers' eyes. These weren't killers at all. They were people from the dark forces who used the identity of Assassin Hall's killers to conceal their real identities. She had not expected that the dark forces would actually trigger 10 of them at once. Did they really think that by using the identity of Assassin Hall's killers, they could deceive everyone? These dark forces' target was her profound jade heart or god relic. Or both. Guardian, she is dead? The leader of the killers swept his gaze across the surroundings and sensed the aura of the dead from the dark forces in the air as he was filled with impatience as he muttered unhappily. He's dead, yet he still summoned us over. We thought there was some important mission when we saw the blood summon. What a disappointment. Guardian, Yiqing Luo thought carefully for a moment and immediately reacted. Wasn't he that black-robed man who told them most of the dark forces' information? It looked like when that guardian she was conversing with them, he had also executed the dark forces' forbidden art, blood summon, to summon these black-robed men who were disguised as killers. In this way, Guardian Ying and Elder Xiong were the first batch of dark forces to enter King Ling's tomb, whereas Shangguan Liuli was the second batch. Following behind Shangguan Liuli was Guardian Shi and that so-called Lord. Since these dark forces people were already here, naturally they wouldn't intend to return empty-handed. That leader quickly understood the remnant message that Guardian Shi used his thoughts to convey to the dark forces before he died. Knowing that the god relic and profound jade heart were in Yiqing Luo's hands, he immediately waved his hand and attacked Yiqing Luo, preparing to end the battle quickly. This batch of 10 people's ability was obviously extraordinary. They should belong to the dark forces guardian party. Without any explanation, they directly started the battle. Yiqing Luo sat on the bird beast and almost fell onto the ground. Luckily, she reacted in time as she speedily leapt up and dodged the black-robed man's attack. That bird beast only had time to cry out miserably as it turned into dregs. Yiqing Luo retreated back to her brothers as her expression turned grave. Vice Group Leader, those people. Their abilities are so strong. Mo Han Shang's handsome brows were masked with an indescribable complicated emotion. Tong Ziqing nodded slightly as her expression congealed. Indeed, such a strong, imposing manner. These 10 people were obviously different from the profounders from the various powers. An aura that seemed to originate from hell emanated from their bodies. It was extremely dangerous, so dangerous that it was terrifying. Yiqing Luo nodded her head as her brows creased tightly, her eyes were as deep as water. She felt it too. These 10 people from the Dark World were definitely not lower than the Guardian Elders in the Dark World. This was especially true for the leader. His aura was so strong that even Yiqing Luo was unable to see through his profound chi fluctuations. It was as if there was an invisible mysterious ripple on his body that was released along with his every move. If you don't want to suffer, then obediently hand over the divine tool and profound heart jade. The hoarse voice of the black-robed leader resounded. Why are the assassins from your Hall of Assassins here to join in the fun? The divine weapon is ours. Who do you think you are? Some profound practitioners had long since suppressed their anger in their hearts. At this moment he saw that the Hall of Assassins also wanted a share of the loot. And it only appeared when only 400 of their 3,000 people had died. No one could stand it. The profound practitioner had only just taken a single step forward. Chapter 921. Blood and brain matter splattered, and under the sky full of blood, it was extremely disgusting. Everyone's vision followed the direction of the palm wind. The leader retracted the hand that he had used to send out the palm wind. Vicious. Too vicious. His attack was swift and merciless. It was this murderous aura which made these cultivators who were used to killing not dared to say a single word. The leader saw that the surroundings had quietened down and immediately shot his venomous gaze towards Yiqing Luo. Or you can choose to leave with me obediently. If I'm happy with your cooperation, I can consider leaving those burdens of yours an intact corpse. These words were simply arrogant to the extreme. The various powerhouses' cultivators were all shocked. Since when did the killers from the Hall of Assassins have such guts? 20 over mercenaries' hearts were filled with anger as they pouted and wanted to reply. But it was stopped by Yiqing Luo's hand. Yiqing Luo's brows creased coldly as she met with that pair of sinister and eerie eyes. There wasn't any fear in her, but instead she gave a smile. Have you people from the Guardian Party always been so arrogant and condescending? Law Protector Party, these 3 words came out. Yiqing Luo obviously saw the astonishment and vigilance in that black-robed leader's eyes. Young lady, it's indeed rare for you to have such guts at your age. The black-robed leader's eyes sunk as he gave a sly sneer. After a pause, that sneer turned gloomy and sinister. But guts should be placed on the right person. For example, me, that is seeking death. The moment his words fell, the black-robed leader had already launched his attack. Both his palms raised up as he struck out horizontally with his palm wind. Rumble. The strong airwave raised the sky full of dust and gravel. Yiqing Luo's surroundings had sunk into a hurricane. This gush of strong energy made Yiqing Luo slightly stunned. She could even feel that when the hurricane blew, it lifted her clothes and hit her skin with a piercing pain. The dark forces were indeed the dark forces which made people tremble with fear. Such a powerful person who also possessed a heaven-defying forbidden skill to protect himself. If he really existed in the Nirvana realm, then this realm would never be at peace. Yiqing Luo transmitted her voice into the mercenary group badge as she said softly, "Deal with them carefully. These people are from the dark forces. If you really can't win them, just escape first." After he finished speaking, he suddenly opened the glowing flame fan in his hand and faced the hurricane, sweeping away a wind blade. The bewitching red light was dazzling. It forcefully tore a hole in the hurricane. Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention to stop as her figure did a somersault in midair and the feather fan in her hands launched several ferocious attacks. The silver threads were like venomous snakes sticking out their scarlet tongues as they shot forward. That black-robed leader didn't expect Yiqing Luo's reaction to be so fast. In such a short period of time he dodged his attack and even retaliated. The black-robed leader's eyes were filled with admiration for Yang Kai's talent. As expected of the girl that his lordship has taken a liking to. Her aptitude is indeed astonishing. The black-robed leader's head tilted slightly and the 9 black-robed men behind him immediately swarmed up. The World Mercenary Group's mercenaries immediately went up to resist the 9 men's attack. When the various powerhouses saw this, they immediately wanted to butt in. But they heard several tens of magical beasts howling as their huge bodies blocked those powerhouses' cultivators. The black-robed leader's eyes rose slightly as his penetrative gaze instantly turned sharp. His palm wind flipped once again as streams of palm wind were ferocious and sharp. Yiqing Luo was separated from a distance away, but she could still clearly feel the strong air wave pouncing onto her face. She subconsciously opened her feather fan as the red profound light turned into a protective cover. Bam! Chapter 922. Her heart suddenly trembled and her long eyelashes fluttered in a slightly panicked manner. The strength of this person from the dark organization was far beyond her expectations. She could feel that this person from the dark organization was not using his full strength. Even without using his full strength, he was still able to possess such powerful strength. If he used his full strength, Yiqing Luo didn't dare to think about it. If it wasn't a matter of life and death, Yiqing Luo really wasn't willing to seek help from Zhou Xian. In this way, the so-called self-growth would lose its meaning. Not bad. Then let's see if you can still take the next palm. The leading black-robed man's tone added a bit of interest. It had been a long time since he had met such an interesting opponent. The black-robed man's eyes darkened as he struck out with both palms. The palm wind seemed to have formed a giant dragon. That huge dragon circled a few times, its profound light dazzling, and the vast energy waves were like a life-reaping talisman. The huge dragon bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards Yiqing Luo. The huge dragon was approaching menacingly and Yiqing Luo's expression changed instantly. Her fingers moved and she could feel a piercing pain in her palm. The move he had forcefully resisted just now had injured the bones in his right wrist. Now it was a little strenuous for him to use even a little of his profound qi. The giant dragon was about to swallow him whole. Yiqing Luo had no other choice but to raise her left hand, her fingertips already wearing the azure dew ring. He suddenly opened his 5 fingers and raised his profound qi to the highest realm. Facing the giant dragon, he also slapped his palm heavily with a powerful wave of qi. Bang! There was another deafening sound of collision. 2 gusts of palm wind instantly exploded in the air, setting off rolling waves. The surrounding air seemed to have solidified. An earth-shattering power instantly surged over. The surrounding chosen ones instantly felt a tightness in their chests. Some profound practitioners with unstable profound ranks spat out blood while clutching their chests. They all stared at the 2 people who were still facing each other in the air. This kind of powerful and boundless power was on a completely different level from when it was used against them just now. That was to say, when Yiqing Luo was contending against them, she totally didn't use her full strength. Even if he didn't use the power of the divine artifact, he didn't use his full strength. This 15-year-old girl. It completely shook the hearts of the profounders from the various powers. Whereas at this moment Yiqing Luo wasn't as calm as she looked on the surface. She could feel it deeply. This black-robed leader's profound rank was definitely higher than hers by more than 1 profound rank. At the very least, it was a Sky Xian supremacy. Yiqing Luo's heart was overwhelmed with shock. The dark forces actually had a supreme expert of the sky profound realm. Then, the leader of the dark forces, that person who was addressed as Lord, could it be that he was on the same level as Zhou Xian? With this palm strike, he activated the power of the azure water ring and fused it with his own profound energy. Yiqing Luo felt that it was extremely strenuous. After receiving this palm strike, Yiqing Luo's body quickly retreated a few steps, avoiding the encroachment of the palm qi. However, the black-robed leader seemed to have seen through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Just as Yiqing Luo moved her foot, he speedily stuck close to her. Those 5 sharp fingers, which were like an eagle's claw, clawed towards Yiqing Luo's heart. Yiqing Luo was aghast. She didn't expect her footwork to be seen through by this black-robed man. He immediately turned around and his figure turned into an afterimage as he quickly retreated. That black-robed leader was still able to entangle her accurately. His 5 fingers mercilessly stabbed towards Yiqing Luo's heart once again. Yiqing Luo's vigilant muscles tightened as her body speedily moved towards the left side and immediately did a roll on the ground. No matter how fast her reaction was, she still couldn't resist the black-robed leader's attack. Chapter 923. Yiqing Luo endured the severe pain and displayed her footwork once again. She turned into an afterimage and was 10 meters away from the black-robed man. Young lady's speed is not bad. The leader revealed his white teeth and smiled coldly. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and glanced at the wound that was still oozing blood. Blood gushed out and the white bones were vaguely visible. She closed her eyes and the expression on her face was calm without any signs of panic. The injury on her right hand had become more serious. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and quickly raised her left hand. The The power of the Azure Dew Ring was injected into the glower flame fan and a wave of strong airflow was launched in the direction of the black-robed man. Immediately after, she leaped up and quickly attacked the black-robed man with a cold glint in her eyes. The difference between a single grade was like 108,000 miles. Not to mention the gap above the profound grade. Yiqing Luo felt it deeply at this moment. In the eyes of the Sky Mystic Overlord, the speed that she had always been proud of was not worth mentioning compared to the shadow escape footwork that she brought from the modern world. Was this the power of the Sky Mystic Overlord? Yiqing Luo's charming eyes shot out an intense glint of determination. A strong opponent would only ignite her fighting spirit. She clenched the glower flame fan tightly, and when she got close to the black-robed man, a few silver threads burst out from the fan and wrapped around his neck. In front of him was the airwave attack that Yiqing Luo had set off. Behind was Yiqing Luo's attack. The black-robed man's eyes were cold and he sneered disdainfully, "Young lady, you are still too inexperienced." As soon as the voice fell, the figure of the black-robed man suddenly disappeared into the air. Yiqing Luo's silver threads missed. She was shocked and released her senses vigilantly and scanned the surroundings. But she couldn't sense the slightest fluctuation at all. Suddenly there was a slight change in the flow of air. Yiqing Luo turned sideways and with a flying kick, she directly kicked towards a certain direction from her side. Sure enough, the kick hit the black-robed man. But her feet were directly buckled by the black-robed man. Yiqing Luo was shocked. Only to hear a loud "kacha" sound, the sharp fingers of the black-robed man directly pinched her feet. Oh! With a muffled groan, Yiqing Luo suddenly felt a piercing pain spreading throughout her limbs and bones. She was in so much pain that her face turned pale. Enduring the pain, she kicked the black-robed man's face. Perhaps he was too confident in himself. Perhaps he didn't even put Yiqing Luo in his eyes. Perhaps he had not expected Yiqing Luo to have the energy to retaliate. This kick with great force directly landed on the black-robed man's face. The black-robed man loosened his grip on Yiqing Luo's leg and was forced to take a few steps back. After he steadied himself, his sinister eyes revealed an extremely strong killing intent. This kick did not cause any fatal damage to the black-robed man. However, he had stepped on the black-robed man's pride. "All right. Good. Great. I, old leopard, have lived most of my life. This is the first time someone has dared to touch my face." The black-robed man laughed sinisterly. The ear-piercing, furious laughter made one's heart tremble. An extremely powerful force emanated from the black-robed man's body. The surrounding air had already started to make a strong buzzing sound. The black-robed man was enraged. The majestic force was extremely horrifying. The cultivators from various forces already had their legs weak, shocked by this horrifying force. "Old leopard." This man was the one that the snake guardian mentioned, one of the four sacred techniques, the leopard saint technique. No wonder he was so powerful. Once the leopard saint technique was completely infuriated. Chapter 924. Vice Group Leader. Those mercenaries who were still entangled with the other black-robed men were extremely worried when they saw this situation. How powerful was the other party? The extent of his power had far exceeded everyone's imagination. Even if they didn't want to believe it, they had no way to deny it. This black-robed man, he must be a sky-profound great overlord. The other powerhouse's cultivators were extremely shocked. The assassin hall actually sent out a sky-profound great overlord to snatch the god relic? Didn't that mean the assassin hall was determined to get this god relic? At this moment, Zhou Xian, who was standing by the side watching the battle, couldn't suppress the worry on his face. The faint black eyes were fixated on Yiqing Luo without blinking, taking in her expression and her injuries into his eyes. Lil Luo, was not that person's opponent. If they continued to fight, it would only worsen Lil Luo's injuries. He wanted to go up to help. But on seeing Yiqing Luo's stubborn eyes, he had no choice but to put down his feet. This was the freedom he promised Lil Luo, and it was also Lil Luo's chance to grow. Any strong cultivator on the path to the peak would inevitably get injured and fall into a life-and-death situation. Lil Luo could still continue fighting, so he must suppress this worry and accompany Lil Luo. Zhou Xian's slender fingers clenched into a fist. That round fingernail, deeply embedded into his palm. Streaks of bright red marks were imprinted on the ground. His eyes were scarlet red as he resisted the urge to rush up and destroy Leopard Saint technique. Suddenly, Dmo Xian's eyes flashed as he thought of something. His faint eyes seemed to be swirling with a whirlpool as he took a deep look at Yiqing Luo. His purple robe fluttered and his figure silently disappeared from the battlefield. Yiqing Luo indeed wasn't feeling well now. Her entire body was in tearing pain. She swiftly swallowed a medicinal pill and tapped the acupoint on her shoulder to stop the blood from gushing out. Whereas the furious Leopard Saint technique who was standing opposite her had completely unleashed his aura. The huge airwave was like a raging hurricane. The hurricane swept her and Leopard Saint technique into it, isolating them from the outside world. That terrifying and powerful murderous aura was daunting. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled fiercely. Leopard Saint technique indeed didn't show any mercy. His palm strike was biting cold and the intense profound light surged as it struck towards Yiqing Luo ruthlessly. He didn't give Yiqing Luo any leeway to retaliate. With a turn of his body, he struck another palm towards the direction where Yiqing Luo was moving towards. The excruciating pain in his body made Yiqing break out in cold sweat. Her expression was solemn. She took a deep breath and stabbed the glowing flame fan behind her. However, he missed. The speed of the Leopard Saint technique was extremely fast, so fast that Yiqing Luo's naked eye couldn't catch it at all. And at this moment, Leopard Saint technique's pride had suffered a setback, so he didn't intend to kill Yiqing Luo directly. Instead, he was prepared to torture Yiqing Luo viciously, making her submit in despair and pain. As long as he kept her alive and brought her back, his lord would not blame him. Yiqing Luo deeply felt the disparity between herself and a sky mystic overlord. She could not see the trajectory of the Leopard Saint technique's attack. It was merely half a cup of tea's time and Yiqing Luo had already been pushed back step by step. The injuries on her body were getting more and more severe. His black clothes were stained with blood, so it was impossible to tell. But everyone knew that Yiqing Luo had absolutely suffered an extremely serious injury at this moment. And every single time Yiqing Luo counterattacked, she could at most leave scratches on Leopard Saint technique's body. This made Leopard Saint technique give a disdainful sneer. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth tightly, enduring the intense pain which made her feel dizzy. Chapter 925. She represented the world group's hope. It represented the beliefs of all the brothers. Once she fell, her brothers would worry about her and she would definitely become a soul in the hands of these cruel and cold-blooded dark forces. Even if Dmo Xian was there, he couldn't guarantee that he could protect every single one of his brothers. Since she had already promised, she wanted to spread the world group's name. Now he absolutely could not fall. I like a little girl like you who can endure. Leopard Saint Law's eyes were cold, and there was a trace of madness in them. It was the expression of his prey resisting, igniting his desire to trample on his prey even more cruelly. Looking at his prey, covered in blood and struggling in pain in his hands, Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. That was the best feeling. The world group's mercenaries were all filled with worry as they looked towards Yiqing Luo's direction in terror. They wanted to help, but the 10 black-robed men in front of them were so hard to deal with that they couldn't split their attention at all. They had already exhausted a great deal of their stamina in the previous battle against the various forces. These 10 black-robed men were so powerful that they seemed to be able to see through their movements. There were also many people from other forces who wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to attack them. It was impossible to guard against. All the mercenaries were covered in wounds of various sizes. Their bodies were covered in blood, and it was hard to tell if it was the enemy's blood, their own blood, or the blood of their comrades. However, they were not afraid at all. They supported each other and attacked the enemy black-robed men. Sister. Kitty Li looked at Yiqing Luo, who was covered in blood, and with a cat's acute sense of smell, she could clearly smell the familiar smell of blood. No matter how anxious she was, Kitty Li knew that she couldn't help her sister right now. Instead, he would become a burden to his sister. A few of the nails on her cat-like hands had already been broken. Her delicate little face was also covered with sweat. Her quick-witted eyes looked towards Dmo Xian's direction, hoping that he would lend a helping hand. But looking at the entire battlefield, there was no sign of Dmo Xian at all. Kitty Li panicked and grabbed Tong Ziqing with her little claws. Sister Ziqing, His Majesty is missing. Tong Ziqing's expression changed as she looked in the direction of Kitty Li. Sure enough, Dmo Xian was nowhere to be seen. Tong Ziqing knitted her brows tightly. Their only reliance was Zhou Xian. Now that Zhou Xian wasn't around, could they really hold on? For a moment Tong Ziqing felt a sharp pain on her back. She was slashed by someone from one of the forces, and the pain made her cold and elegant face pale. Kitty Li tore that profound practitioner to shreds with a single claw and turned her head to support Tong Ziqing. Big sister Ziqing, I'm fine. Tong Ziqing clenched her teeth and waved her hand. She endured the pain, forced herself to endure it, narrowed her cold eyes and coldly swept the surrounding profound practitioners. Do you think you can leave here alive after killing us? Tong Ziqing's cold voice seemed to be covered in frost. She used her profound qi and spread it out. These people are all from the dark forces. That's right, it's the group of beasts that were expelled from the Nirvana realm. These people will definitely not let anyone who knows their identity get away. Tong Ziqing said word by word. There was not a trace of emotion in his words. Of course you can choose not to believe me. In the end we will all die together. Her words had just landed when a terrified voice was heard. Is what you said true? They are from the dark forces? The various forces cultivators looked towards the direction of the voice and the distrustful expression on their faces changed immediately. Chapter 926. Yuqi family's patriarch. Their current chief commander. These powerhouses cultivators originally didn't really believe it. These killers from the Assassin Hall were obviously targeting the World Mercenary Group. No, to put it more accurately, they were targeting Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's companions' words were definitely to make use of their strength to go against these killers. Dark forces? They had not heard of the dark forces for a long time. Hadn't they been expelled from Nirvana realm 1,000 years ago? How could they possibly appear again? Yuqi family's patriarch stepped forward from the crowd as his gaze swept past those black-robed men with a terrified expression. Dark forces. These people really are from the dark forces. Tong Ziqing gave him a cold stare, not having any good impression of Yuqi family's patriarch. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Anyway, I've already said what I should say and I've done my best. Yuqi family's patriarch went into deep thoughts. These killers, no matter if they were from the dark forces or not, all of them had ill intentions. Ever since these people appeared, no matter which powerhouse the other party belonged to, as long as they obstructed them, they would directly tear them into pieces. Moreover, their methods were extremely cruel. Moreover, the various powerhouses were indeed unable to leave. The minute they had any thoughts of leaving, these black-robed men would directly kill those people who wanted to leave. Most importantly, these black-robed men's target was the same as the various powerhouses for the God Relic. From the current situation, these black-robed men's abilities were obviously above Yiqing Luo's. Rather than snatching the God Relic from these black-robed men whose abilities were unfathomable, they might as well snatch it from the extremely weak Yiqing Luo who was covered in blood. Thinking in this way, Yuqi family's patriarch followed Tong Ziqing's words. This patriarch chooses to believe what this young lady said. To tell the truth, my son Yuqi Peng had died under the dark forces' sinister forbidden arts. Saying this, Yuqi family's patriarch's expression turned sorrowful and grave as he raised one hand and covered his eyes, as though he was grieving for his own son. Looking at these people's skills as well as their vicious attacks, they are absolutely from the dark forces. They want to disguise themselves as assassins from the Assassin Hall, attempting to frame the Assassin Hall. Patriarch Yuqi's voice suddenly became extremely heavy and solemn. The dark forces secretly sneaked into the Nirvana realm from the plane of Nirvana realm. If we find out about their identities, they will definitely kill them to silence them. The patriarch of the Yuqi family was one of the 4 great aristocratic families. His words were naturally more important than those young mercenaries from the World Group. Immediately, the various forces became anxious and uneasy. They all looked at the Yuqi family head, waiting for his suggestion. I, Yuqi Hongwei, head of the House of Yuqi, hereby declare my intention to cooperate with my fellow comrades. Let us put aside all our daily unhappiness and fight together for the sake of survival. Immediately, many people from other forces raised their arms in agreement. When the other forces saw this, they naturally couldn't be left alone. Patriarch Yuqi's complexion improved slightly. He was just about to ask Tong Ziqing more about the situation. However, the girl's face was cold as she turned around without looking back. She waved the weapon in her hand and continued to fight with the black-robed men. Patriarch Yuchi's expression turned stiff as he awkwardly shifted his gaze away and gathered everyone to join in the battle. After these 400 over-cultivators joined in the battle, these dark forces black-robed men apparently couldn't keep up with them.